Today on Locked On Red Wings, defensive woes continue to prove costly as the offense and the power play finally begin to regress.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty is the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University, ACHA D1 men's hockey. And what a woeful weekend it was here in Detroit, Scotty, between two back-to-back blowout losses by the Red Wings, a divisional round loss by the Lions after a record-setting season, a franchise record-setting season, and then also a loss by the Pistons as well. I think all of Detroit's a little bit down bad right now.
Yeah, and the Wings didn't help, certainly.
No, certainly did not help. Losing 5-1 against Tampa on Saturday and 4-1 against Dallas on Sunday. And I don't want to hear any excuses about a back-to-back because Dallas was also on a back-to-back as well. They just got their teeth kicked in by Colorado the night before.
Got pumped in both games.
Right. So I just want to get that out of the way right now.
Right. It's one thing to be competitive in the first game, and then the second game you fall apart and you're like, oh, back-to-back. Nope, you looked pretty much the same in both.
Exactly. So we'll talk about both games kind of, I don't know, it's probably just going to be a weird flow back and forth. We'll try to keep it as siloed as possible, but when you're talking about players who played in both games, you can't help but talk about both experiences. Anyways, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel makes the playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. Scotty, do you want to just do a weekend as a whole, your difference maker?
Sure.
All right, let's lead it off then.
Yeah. I think there's two or three kind of groups that you can talk about here. I'm not sure there's a individual player. We'll talk about it. But I really, to me, this was just an entire defensive effort of awfulness, for 6 periods. And that's going to be my difference maker, is just the I guess I kind of came into the episode thinking it was going to be the blue line as a whole, but I mean, the forwards we talk about all the time, they should get heat when the defense goes south too. They are responsible for defense as well. This was really brutal for both games. We're really brutal in terms of, I think you said before we hit record, you just called them defensive lapses. And that I think is the best way to put it. It's not as though they were giving up 40 or 50 shots. And it's not as though the opponent was able to just enter the zone at free will and set up shop and stay there for 60 minutes every game. But it was high danger opportunity after high danger opportunity after high danger opportunity, and just completely leaving your goalie out to dry. And they did it all weekend in both games. There was zero help. And the goaltending obviously wasn't great. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, in segment 2 or 3. But my difference maker over the course of the weekend is that the team defense was absolutely atrocious for both of these games.
Yeah, I mean, you could go down the list on the goals, and it's just so many unforced errors or making the extra effort. You can see on the show sheet there, I put defensive lapses and laziness, not making the extra effort to tie somebody up or taking the one extra stride to take away a lane, and it cost them time and time again. You look at the first goal against the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? Jake Gensel is just sitting there in front of the net. The puck comes off the boards, and neither Raymond nor Sherratt, when that puck comes off the back of the boards, it makes that one extra stride to stick their stick in the lane to prevent Gensel from getting that puck off the boards for an easy short side goal. Sherratt could have just stuck his stick out, taken an extra half step. And I get there's a reaction time, right? There's a very good, smart set play off the boards, but he turned around and just watched Gensel. And then, I mean, you could go down the list, like Kucherov's goal, right, where he dangled past DeBrincat. Like, it shouldn't be that easy to get around a guy. In the game against Dallas, like, DeBrincat tries to force a pass cross ice in his own zone. It gets picked off, and they crash the net and they score. Or Patrick Kane's putrid defensive effort on the third goal against, that was what, Bouchard was his name? Let me double check on that. Bork, rather. I'm sorry. Bork. Bouchard plays for Edmonton. He turns the puck over in the offensive zone, then does not backcheck until he sees the pass being made, is when he decides to make the effort to take the passing lane and his guy away, ultimately gets him demoted to the fourth line. Like, the leaving guys alone in front was a continuous problem. Not tying a guy up in front. Like, that's how Robertson scored his goal. It was on the power play. Sherratt didn't tie his guy up, didn't even make an effort to lift the stick. He just spun and scored on the rebound. The same thing happened against Tampa Bay, where a player was left all alone on the power play, and they just hammered home the rebound. Nobody made the effort to tie him up. It's just time and time again, the easy things to fix, the extra effort, the laziness, and these dumb defensive lapses from trying to force things that don't need to be forced. It cost them time and time again. And this time, unlike against the Florida Panthers, their offense and their power play could not bail them out because what we were talking about, it was unsustainable. And now we're seeing it regress a little bit to the mean. So I completely agree, Scotty. The defensive lapses are a huge difference maker. And I mean, I guess if I had to have a different difference maker, just for the sake of argument, to kind of expand on that, I'll just go penalty kill, right? I mean, on the weekend, you had 4 penalty kills on the weekend, and you gave up goals on 3 of them. And
brutal, dude.
That's brutal. They've switched how they've played the penalty kill. They play a passive diamond, but the penalty kill has really not improved. If it has improved, it's been very marginal. They're still giving up a ton of goals. And a lot of it comes because of the fact that a lot of the times the players aren't taking the guy net front out of the equation. And I understand a lot of the times when you're down a man, the defenseman out front is trying to play for the back door on either side. What kind of letting that guy, that bumper in front of the net, be alone? But it feels like they're not clicking and they're not understanding assignments. They're not what's the word I'm looking for? Like, exchanging responsibilities down low well, and they're leaving somebody viable and available every single time. So I guess it'd be kind of an expansion on defensive woes, would be just talking about the penalty kill, which continues to kill them all season. They're the 31st worst penalty kill, and it's going to be one of the things that is going to hurt them all season long, and it's hurt them all weekend long too.
Yeah, and I think that there is a big picture conversation to have going forward, just about, I mean, to all the credit in the world to you, when we were in the middle of the winning streak, you were like, yeah, but like, how are they going to look when this ends? Like, they're obviously going to drop a game eventually. And what is the team going to look like from that moment forward? And I think that you are seeing some real, dents in the armor. Like, you're seeing some issues that were not overlooked, because we talked about them a lot, but maybe were not super in the forefront of everybody's mind because they were winning a lot of hockey games. And I think that those are kind of rearing their ugly head again. And just defensive depth, period, is continues to be. And I know I'm a broken record with that, and I've been saying it since the summer, like since before puck dropped even. But like, that continues to be such a massive problem for this hockey team. Like, they have bodies, but they don't have they don't have talented depth. Like, they just have people to play the positions, and that's. I don't know, man. Like, you look at the teams that are playoff teams or going to be playoff teams, or even the teams that are in like the mix for the wild card, and just compare blue line to blue line. And you tell me who the wings, top to bottom, not just like Sider versus, if somebody else is number one or something like that, top to bottom, full blue line group, who the wings is better than that of like the teams that are in the mix with us and better. It's few and far between.
No, you're 100% correct. And, we saw a new coach bump for almost everyone on the roster, right? Like, Justin Holl was looking better. Ben Sherratt was back in the top pair, and they were looking good. We talked about that. Well, those new coach bumps for those players are gone. Like, obviously, we blamed Justin Holt pretty much straight up, as did McClellan, saying he had a pretty awful game a couple days ago. But Sherrod's, been not good on the top pair again. Like, we're back to having a top pair that's just one player. How many times in these last 2 games did he have a guy he was covering in front of the net that he just did not tie up or body up? And he was a little screwed over by the ref in this game on the penalty kill. I understand where the ref kind of tripped him up, but he failed to clear the puck out, and it's just he's looked really bad. And that top pair at 5-on-5 between Seider and Ben Sherratt is producing almost no offense. And it's just the amount of expected goals against. It's night and day. When Seider and Edvinsson were together, how good they were. But you can't afford to put them back together without making the second pair just as bad, especially because Johansson and Edvinsson have actually found quite a groove. They're playing really well.
Sure.
Johansson had over 20 minutes on Sunday against the Dallas Stars. Like, they're finding a viable second pair, which gives you the idea, like, maybe you can put Petrie on the third pair when he comes back. And it's just like, but now you're presented with the same issue. It's like your load-bearing pair, your top pair, is only half of a pair. And so it just goes right into your saying the defensive depth of this hockey team is just really struggling. And Seider's doing all he can on that top pair, right? He played 24.5 minutes on Saturday, had 8 hits and 5 shots on Sunday. He had another great game with another 6 hits and 4 shots with a blocked shot in the mix too. Like, he's doing all he can. And not that he doesn't share some of the blame, but he needs a partner, man. He does need a partner.
Correct.
The defensive depth, to exactly right. It's pretty bad. But we're going to take a quick break. When we return, Scotty, we'll talk about notable performers, kind of shift to the Lightning game first, and talk about what stood out to you from that game that maybe is a little bit different from kind of the overarching narrative of the weekend. So stay tuned to segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300. $300. They upped it in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, let's transition now into talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning game a little bit more in depth. What stood out to you from this game? Who stood out to you from this game that kind of, again, is away from the defense sucked, offense sucked narrative we were kind of building there in the first?
Yeah. Like the defense was rough. This is just one of those games where you really focus on the defense and the lack of, I guess really everything. Like this game was frustrating because you almost outshot them by double, right? Like the Wings had 40 shots on goal and Tampa barely crossed 20 and yet won 5-1. Cam Talbot had a save percentage in like the 600s. Like, I mean, it was a game of a lot of defensive breakdowns. It was a game of poor goaltending, which I'm sure we'll talk more about, like I said. And it was a game of, you had mentioned this earlier as well, like just a complete lack of offensive, I guess the word is creativity, but like for a team that gave up so many high danger opportunities, they certainly didn't return the favor. This was a lot of just from distance, just like, let's just get a shot on net and hope something happens. Pucks were not getting deep whatsoever. There was no high danger in front of the net opportunities for them in this game. And it showed. And that's why, all of those things combined is what gets you a 5-1 loss where you outshot your opponent by double.
Well, and that's exactly it, right? If you look at both of these games, I talk so much about like Corsi and expected goals and all that. And like these games are perfect examples again of why like you can't look at these stats like that and think that tells the whole story, because it doesn't. Like the numbers without context does not give you anything. The Red Wings had a very good first period outside that the first goal they gave up, which I want to correct myself. That was Braden Point who got the puck off the end boards to bury. Gensel got the power play goal. I got my goals mixed up. But the Red Wings dominated that first period, I thought, after that goal. Like they came out strong, gave up an easy goal, and then played really well the rest of the first. The rest of the game, yeah, they outshot attempted and they outshot their opponent in the Tampa Bay Lightning. And this was a problem in the Dallas Stars game too, so I guess that'll carry on to the next segment as well. But all of their shots, as you just mentioned, came from the perimeter. Their shots in both of these games come from along the boards or along the blue line, and then they fail to get to the middle or generate a meaningful rebound that they can bury. And when they're trying to make a pass in the offensive zone, they can't cross through the meat of the zone. They have to go along the boards. And both these games, I saw so much just rimming it around for the next guy. And eventually there isn't a next guy, and it comes back out or is intercepted. So, like, the offensive zone creativity really dried up. So, yeah, against the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Detroit Red Wings had a 66%, 63%, and 52% shot attempt share at 5-on-5. But if you look at the expected goals for percentage, which is, again, is weighing it for quality, the Red Wings had 72% in the first, which makes sense, matches the eye test. They had a good first, but then it was 45 and 36%. Scotty, you weren't exaggerating when you said they didn't have any high-danger chances. Their high-danger chances in the third period was 0. In a period where they outshot the Tampa Bay Lightning 10-7, they had 0 high-danger chances.
That's brutal.
And like that carried over to the Tampa Bay Lightning. So that's what I'm talking about. Where, okay, so you're drying up on defense, but the thing that was carrying you, which was the power play, which did score a goal in this game, but you're already down 4-0 at that point. So whoop-de freaking do.
Awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Your power play is finally regressing because we knew it wasn't going to stay at 50% all season long, and now your 5-on-5 scoring and creativity in the offensive zone is drying up too, and that's what was carrying you to victories. Because we were talking about it in those games, they were making defensive lapses. That was keeping the game, some of those games, closer than they should have. But they're outscoring their problems, kind of like they were last year. That was a big thing, right? They scored a lot of goals, a ton of goals last year, but they were brutal defensively. So we kind of got back to that during the win streak, and now we have to find out is, like, can McClellan fix this? And not like he's not going to fix it, but can he get them playing consistent hockey? Consistent enough in the defensive zone, not lazy, not stupid, but just like smart defensive hockey enough that the offense can continue to carry them. Like, there'll be nights like this. There'll be weekends like this. But it's how we respond after a tough weekend that we're really going to find out what McClellan's Red Wings are made of. And again, they still have one more game left where they can, split this road trip, which was what our goal was. So if they win on Tuesday and beat the Flyers in Philadelphia, like, as far as I'm concerned, like, it's still a W as the road trip's concerned. Because it was a difficult road trip, and we were aware of that. But this weekend definitely made it feel like there was a difference in status between Dallas and Tampa versus Detroit.
Yeah, well, it's just this team has beat Winnipeg, beat Florida on the road, and also lost to San Jose and just got outscored like dang near 10-2, 10 to whatever, and 9-2, 9-3 over the course of the weekend set. Yeah. So like it's just been a lot of peaks and valleys, right? It's been a lot of really high highs and a lot of really low lows in this stretch as well. So I think that there's still so much of like dramatic spikes and dips happening that we're still trying to get a decent feel and a decent gauge for how, like, what this team is going to be over a consistent, like, prolonged period of time. I still don't think we really know, to be honest. And right, like, you had the win streak, and that was great and awesome. They obviously weren't going to win out, but their power play was at an unbelievable level that was just never going to, sustain. And then you have what I just mentioned with the really good performances against some really good teams, some really bad performances against some really bad teams, and some really bad performances against some really good teams. So like, it's just been we're still trying to find out where they, when they get their sea legs under them, and once this team has an identity, what that is going to be in terms of results, we still really don't know yet, to be honest.
Yeah, and for what it's worth too, when it comes to like notable performers and what, like Lucas Raymond scored a goal that was notable on the power play. That's about it, right? Like everything else is what you were just saying. It's still way too early to figure out how this team is going to be for the rest of the season. But like, right, as we mentioned, like this is kind of what we were waiting for. Like it was great winning 7 in a row, but like we were waiting for this team to get popped in the mouth once or twice to see how they respond. So I mean, all eyes from me are already on Philly because
yeah, of course.
If you can't come out fast and strong against the Flyers after getting popped in the mouth on back-to-back nights on the road, like that's – and like not to say that that's going to be it for the season, if they don't, but that for me is going to show how much that this team actually cares about, being relevant because – and it sucks too, right? They went on a 7-game winning streak, but they weren't alone. Columbus just won 6 in a row. Ottawa's 5-0-1 in their last 6. Montreal is 8-2 in their last 10, right? Like all these teams got hot right at the same time as you did. So yeah, you pulled within 2, but just very quickly, as soon as you've lost now 3 of 4, and all the other teams around you have not slowed down.
Right.
So it was a tough uphill battle already just to get back in the race. And then, of course, everybody else in the race got hot at the same time, too. And now you're 5 points back out again. So it's how it's going to be. You're going to have to respond and respond in a big way. And multiple responses, not just one. So,
right.
Anyway, yeah, barely even talked about the Lightning game. But
like I said this a lot over the, last couple of weeks, but like it's mid-January, man. Like we have 4 months until the season ends. You just play the team in front of you. Like nothing else matters. We're not in the business of like hardcore like standings watching in terms of like, oh, like we really need this to happen today. Like, no, you need to just get a group of wins together. You did that over the winning streak. That's awesome. You just need to keep winning. It's none of what everybody else matters if you don't keep winning games and forcing yourself back into the conversation. That's really all that matters.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're in a hole like the way they are, all you can do is just win your game and hope for the best because you don't control your own destiny. So, all right, Scotty, let's head to segment 3. We'll talk about the Dallas game, maybe. Well, I don't know. We kind of got off topic about the Lightning game, but hey, both games they lost, they're kind of similar in that fashion, so it'll kind of blend together. Segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings coming up. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with over 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million, no medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance policy for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Literally punched my can of sparkling water and almost spilled all over my desk.
I heard that.
Did you hear my gasp? My heart skipped.
Not hear the gasp. Honestly, I wish I did. I'm going to have to go back and listen.
But, all right. It was more like...
Thanks for reenacting it.
You're welcome. Red Wings fall 4-1 against Dallas on Sunday. Pretty much the same exact game for the most part in terms of just like defensive lapses, offense not really generating much high danger opportunities. Yeah. Who stood out to you in that game, Scotty?
Oh, great! What a great fun question.
You can just do the whole. You can do the whole segment if you want. Like, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, man, like genuinely, I think. Like I keep going back to the goaltending just because I don't think it was great all weekend. But as we said at the start of the show, I'm not sure I want to put a ton of the blame, I guess is the word I'll use, on the goaltending. Like it wasn't good. It didn't bail the team out. It wasn't awesome. But you also scored 2 goals all weekend and had some of the worst defense I've ever seen. Like that's tough to put those two things together and walk out of it blaming your goaltending. So like Lyon was fine. Like I don't think he was 4 goals obviously isn't great. 840 save percentage, certainly not where you want to be. But again, like defense is defense. Like I just they gave that goal to Casper. I'm seeing. I think you said that before we hit record too.
Yeah, it went off of Marco Casper, so it's his fifth goal.
So it's not Edmondson's. That's too bad.
But Casper's doing a good job of getting to the net front and getting.
We'll gladly take that. I didn't think Justin Holl had a particularly great weekend, but like that's been a reoccurring theme. But like legitimately to not just pile onto him like a lot of people, us included, have been doing over the last week or so because he hasn't played very well. Again, nobody on the blue line outside of Seider has been consistently great. I mean, you talked earlier about some steps forward by like Aljo and whatnot. Gustafsson has been producing a little bit of points lately, which has been a nice change of pace from the first 3-4 months of the season. But like it's Seider, Edvinsson's been solid, and outside of that, it's a revolving door. But I think Hull continues to struggle is really one of my bigger takeaways.
Yeah, I thought the second line and Patrick Kane in particular were brutal, and I kind of mentioned it earlier. But like, so DeBrincat has that terrible turnover in front of the net. Scrum ensues and they score. Patrick Kane turns the puck over to in the offensive zone. They come down. He doesn't cover his man in Bork. Is just coasting. Controller is disconnected, coasting, just watching the puck carrier. Once he sees they're going to pass, he takes like 2 strides to try to cover Bork, who is his man on the rush. Because Justin Holl correctly slides over because he sees his partner in Gustafsson take away close in on the gap on the player along the boards. And so Justin Holl slides over to cover the guy Gustafsson was covering. That means that Bork backdoor is now Patrick Kane's responsibility as the back checker. Patrick Kane did not cover that guy, and they scored an easy goal to go up 3-0. And he was demoted to the 4th line for the rest of the game. And there's speculation on whether or not he was demoted because he kind of hurt himself. But like, if he's healthy enough to play the rest of the game and he's healthy enough to lead the power play on power play unit 1,
right?
I think it's definitely more of a sending a statement, be like, I don't care if you're a Hall of Famer, that level of effort defensively is unacceptable, and it was unacceptable. He had a really bad game, Patrick Kane did. So, yeah, It was a rough game for Patrick Kane. A lot of my notable performers in this one, Scotty, are more in the negative light, unfortunately.
Yeah, well,
Thankfully, we've already mentioned most of them, right? Like we mentioned Schrodt, we mentioned, Hull. I do think that Edvinsson and Albert Johansson had a pretty solid game. Honestly, I liked Johansson's game in this one. Again, he played over 20 minutes. I think was this the first time in his career he played over 20 minutes? I'd have to go back and check, but he ended the night on 20 minutes and 27 seconds, and that's without special teams, right? So that's second most 5-on-5 ice time out of any defenseman, next to Simon Edvinsson. Seider only did lead the team in overall ice time, but a lot of that came on special teams. So he had second most 5-on-5 ice time out of any defenseman. And, for what it's worth, he was a 0 on the plus-minus stat sheet because obviously he was out there when they scored the 1 goal for. He had 2 shots of his own. He had 2 hits. I mean, I think he's been gaining a lot of confidence. He and Edvinsson, I thought, looked pretty solid. And I think the data backs that up because Simon Edvinsson and Albert Johansson were the top 2 defensemen in terms of 5-on-5 shot attempt share and expected goals for percentage. So, yeah, that's about all I have positive to say. I thought the top line was generating the most amount of offense. They were carrying the puck the most. But again, they weren't really, outside of like one opportunity where Raymond danced to the middle, it was again just all along the perimeter.
Right.
They had the puck the most.
Generating the most offense in this game is really not an accomplishment, yeah.
Right. But like when they were out there, the team had the puck. They were at least getting the puck and getting it off
which is a
zone.
step in the right direction, I guess.
But they just, like every other line, they struggled
More
to get
than
it
the
off
other
of
lines
the
can
boards
say,
into the middle. Right. It's just, unfortunately, I feel bad because I just have, I don't like weekends like this when both games kind of play out the same because I feel like we say everything that needs to be said in segment 1. And it's just like, okay, but like they lost, so there's like no one really to talk about as a notable performer outside of the negative either.
They lost, and it was uncompetitive loss. Like it wasn't like, oh, there was one close game and like there was some positive. Like, no, they both were identical. They were both train wrecks. It was, again, 9-2 total over the weekend.
Right. It's bad.
Bad.
Lions healthy, obviously. Husso got reassigned. I don't think I got anything else.
I don't think so either.
It was a good vent sesh.
Yeah.
So we'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. We should have Andrew Rinaldi on for a Grand Rapids Griffins update, so that should lift our spirits a little bit here, especially because Carter Mazer, Scott, I don't know if you heard this, but Carter Mazer is supposed to be returning very soon if he has not returned by the time you guys hear this episode. So Andrew Rinaldi be talking Griffins with us tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. Did you say we ball?
We ball.
Same time, same place. It's your team every day.